Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. Thomas slouched in his ergonomic chair, eyes glazed over from staring at lines of code for hours. The clock on his computer blinked 11:47 p.m. Another late night at the office. He sighed, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. Screw it, he muttered, closing his laptop. I need a break. As he packed up his things, a notification pinged on his phone, another ad for that new dating app, Star Crush. Thomas had been seeing them everywhere lately. Find your perfect match across the galaxy, the tagline proclaimed. He snorted. Yeah, right, as if any alien would want to date a boring Earth programmer. But as he rode the subway home, curiosity got the better of him. What the hell, he thought, and downloaded the app. It wasn't like his love life could get any worse. The app's interface was sleek, with twinkling stars and swirling nebulae in the background. Thomas quickly set up his profile, adding a few recent photos and a self-deprecating bio, human male seeking intelligent life in the universe, warning, may bore you with coding jokes. He idly swiped through a few profiles, marveling at the diversity of alien species, a four-armed blue humanoid, an amorphous cloud of gas, and something that looked suspiciously like a walking cactus. Then he saw her. Her skin was a pale lavender, with iridescent markings swirling across her face and arms. Almond-shaped eyes glowed with an inner light, and long, silky hair shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist. Thomas's finger hovered over the like button. No way she'd match with him, but what did he have to lose? He tapped the screen instantly. A notification popped up, it's a match. Thomas nearly dropped his phone in shock. He fumbled to open the chat window, heart racing. Hi there, he typed. I'm Thomas, it's nice to meet you. The reply came almost instantly, hello, Thomas of Earth. I am Zara. Your species intrigues me. Perhaps we could meet to discuss your planet's customs. Thomas blinked, rereading the message. Was this really happening, he wondered. I'd love to, he replied. When and where, they agreed, to meet the following evening at a trendy rooftop bar in Manhattan. The next day, Thomas alternated between excitement and disbelief. As he approached the bar, he spotted her immediately. She was even more stunning in person, her skin seeming to glow in the dim lighting. Zara? He asked hesitantly as he approached. She turned, offering a dazzling smile that lit up her face. Thomas, how wonderful to meet you in the flesh, her voice had an otherworldly quality, like wind chimes in a summer breeze. Thomas felt his knees go weak. Can I get you a drink, he offered, gesturing to the bar. Zara's eyes sparkled with amusement. Actually, I brought something special for us to try, a delicacy from my home world. She produced a small vial filled with shimmering blue liquid. Thomas eyed it warily. It's perfectly safe for humans, Zara assured him. It's said to open one's mind to new experiences. Thomas hesitated, this seemed risky, but Zara's encouraging smile melted his reservations. What the hell, he said, taking the vial. When in Rome, right? He downed the contents in one gulp. It tasted like liquid starlight, fizzing on his tongue. Tell me about your planet. What's it like? Thomas asked, settling into his chair. Zara leaned forward, her eyes glowing with intensity. Oh, Thomas, why don't I show you instead? The world began to spin, colors blurred and stretched. Thomas felt himself falling. He awoke with a pounding headache, lying on a cold metal floor. Harsh fluorescent light stabbed at his eyes. What the hell? Thomas groaned, pushing himself up. He was in some kind of holding cell. The walls were a dull gray metal with no windows, and a force field shimmered across the open doorway. Panic rose in his throat. This isn't a bad trip, this is real. Hello, he called out. Is anyone there? What's going on? A tall, blue-skinned alien appeared on the other side of the force field. It regarded Thomas with 4 black eyes. "Ah, the Earth specimen is awake," it said in a buzzing voice. "Good, the auction begins soon." "Auction?" Thomas sputtered. "What auction? I'm not a specimen, I'm a person." The alien ignored him, tapping something on a pad. The force field disappeared. "Come," it ordered. "You will be prepared for display." Thomas backed away. "No way, I'm not going anywhere until you explain what's happening." The alien produced a small device. Before Thomas could react, a jolt of electricity coursed through his body. He collapsed, muscles spasming. "That was merely the lowest setting," the alien said calmly. "Now, will you comply?" Gritting his teeth, Thomas nodded. The alien led him down a long corridor lined with other cells. Some contained familiar Earth animals, dogs, cats, exotic birds, others held creatures Thomas couldn't begin to describe. They entered a large room filled with various equipment. Other aliens bustled about, prepping merchandise for the auction. "Stand still," his captor ordered. A beam of light scanned Thomas from head to toe, then, a mist was sprayed over his body, leaving his skin tingling. "Decontamination and translator implant complete," another alien announced. "Take it to holding area B." Thomas was shoved into another cell, this one containing a dozen other humans in various states of distress. "What's going on?" a young woman sobbed. "Where are we?" "I think," Thomas said grimly, "we're about to be sold." The next few hours passed in a blur of fear and confusion. Finally, they were herded onto a stage behind a shimmering curtain. Thomas could hear the excited murmur of a large crowd. A booming voice announced, "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentients, welcome to the 93rd Annual Galactic Exotic Pet Auction. Let's start the bidding with Lot 127, a prime male Earth specimen." To his horror, Thomas realized they were talking about him. A spotlight focused on his face as he was pushed to the front of the stage. "Observe the well-developed musculature and thick head fur," the announcer declared. "This specimen would make an excellent manual laborer or decorative companion." Thomas tried to speak to explain that he was sentient, but no sound came out. The translator implant, he realized, had disabled his ability to communicate. Alien appendages rose throughout the crowd as bidding began. Suddenly, 2 stunningly beautiful, green-skinned women made their way to the stage, speaking urgently to the auctioneer. The announcer's voice boomed out again, "It seems we have a special request, folks. The esteemed representatives Miran and Ja, of the Emerald and Royal family, wish to inspect this specimen more closely before bidding." The 2 aliens gracefully ascended to the stage. Thomas's breath caught in his throat. Despite the surreal situation, he couldn't help but notice how attractive they were. Their skin was a rich emerald green with intricate patterns swirling across their exposed flesh. Large almond-shaped eyes regarded him with frank curiosity. "Let's see those teeth," Miran said, grasping Thomas's jaw. He tried to pull away, but Ja held him firmly in place. Cool fingers pried his lips apart, exposing his teeth. "Not bad," Miran mused, "a bit dull but in good condition overall." "What about the pelt?" Gia asked, running her hands through Thomas's hair. "It's so coarse." Thomas shuddered at their touch, equal parts humiliated and involuntarily aroused. This can't be happening, he thought desperately. "Now, let's check if it's male or female." Miran reached for the waistband of Thomas's pants. He yelped, trying to squirm away. The 2 women laughed. "Definitely male," Gia smirked, adding, "and rather reactive too." They conferred quietly for a moment, then turned to the auctioneer. "We'll take it," Marinette announced. "The princess will be most pleased with this gift." As they led him off the stage, Thomas's mind reeled. Princess gift. What fresh hell have I gotten myself into? Yet a small, traitorous part of him whispered, "At least, your new owners are hot." Thomas silently cursed his libido. He needed to focus on escaping, not ogling his captors. even if they did have legs for days and curves that defied alien geometry. Escape first, intergalactic flirting, he thought. Later, as Mirren and Gia guided him toward their ship, Thomas began planning. Somehow, he'd find a way to communicate, to make them understand he was a person, not a pet. And if that didn't work, well, he'd just have to become the biggest pain-in-the-ass pet in galactic history. Thomas stumbled as he was led down the gleaming ramp of the alien spacecraft. The harsh sunlight of emerald stabbed at his eyes, forcing him to squint. 2 suns blazed in a lavender sky, casting strange double shadows across a landscape that seemed to shimmer and shift. "Come along, Quark Mini-Net," said a voice, tugging at the leash attached to his collar. "The princess is eager to meet you." Thomas bristled at the name and the indignity of the leash, but he knew better than to resist. He'd bide his time, play along, and look for an opportunity to escape, or at least communicate that he was sentient. As they approached a towering crystalline structure that must have been the palace, Thomas couldn't help but marvel at the alien architecture, spires of translucent green material twisted impossibly upward, defying gravity and logic. John noticed his wide-eyed stare and chuckled. "I think our new pet likes his surroundings. See how his eyes sparkle, as if he understands what he's seeing." "Don't be ridiculous," scoffed Mirren. "It's a primitive creature, probably just sees shiny things and gets excited." Thomas gritted his teeth, reminding himself to stay calm. He'd show them just how primitive he was, given half a chance. They entered a vast chamber, sealed in shadows high above. At the far end, seated on an ornate throne, was the most breathtaking being, alien or human, that Thomas had ever seen. Princess Aurora was tall and lithe, her skin, a pale mint green, seemed to glow from within. Iridescent patterns swirled across her bare arms and face, shifting and changing as she moved. Her eyes were large and luminous, filled with an otherworldly intelligence that made Thomas's breath catch in his throat. "Your Highness," Mini-Net announced, bowing low, "we present your birthday gift, an exotic creature from a distant world called Earth." Aurora rose gracefully, her flowing gown shimmering like liquid starlight, and approached Thomas. She studied him with undisguised curiosity. "How fascinating," she murmured, reaching out to touch his face. Her fingers were cool and impossibly soft. "What do you call it?" "We've named him Quark," Ja said. Thomas wanted to scream that his name was Thomas, that he was a person, not a pet, but the words wouldn't come. Whatever they had done to him at the auction was still blocking his ability to speak. Aurora circled him slowly, taking in every detail. "And you say he's intelligent for a lower life form?" "I mean, oh yes," Mirren said eagerly. "He can be trained to perform simple tasks. Watch this." She held up a small device. "Quark, sit." Before Thomas could decide whether to comply or resist, a jolt of pain lanced through his body, and he found himself sitting on the floor, muscles twitching. Aurora frowned. "I'm not sure I approve of such methods," he seems distressed. "It's perfectly harmless, Your Highness," Gia assured her. "Just a little positive reinforcement." Thomas glared at them, wishing he could tell them exactly where they could shove their positive reinforcement. "Well," Aurora said, her expression softening as she gazed at Thomas, "he is rather adorable, isn't he? Those eyes, so expressive, almost as if he understands everything we're saying. If only they knew." "Thank you for this unique gift," Aurora continued. "I look forward to studying him further. You may go." As Mini-Net and Ja bowed and retreated, Thomas felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. At least the princess seemed kinder than his previous captors, but he was still very much a prisoner. Over the next few weeks, Thomas settled into a routine in the palace. Aurora insisted on keeping him in her private chambers, much to the consternation of her advisor. She spent hours each day attempting to train him, which mostly involved pointing at objects and repeating their names in her language. Little did she know, Thomas was a quick study. He began to pick up words and phrases, slowly piecing together the alien tongue. Yet he kept his growing comprehension a secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal his true nature. One evening, as Aurora brushed his hair, a task she seemed to enjoy far more than was strictly necessary, Thomas decided to test the waters. "Aurora," he said softly, the name feeling strange on his tongue. After weeks of forced silence, the princess gasped, the brush clattering to the floor. "Cork, did you just speak?" Thomas turned to face her, meeting her gaze steadily. "My name is Thomas," he said carefully, in her language. "And I am not a pet, I am a sentient being from Earth." Aurora stumbled backward, her eyes wide with shock. This is impossible. You're an animal, a lower life form." "I assure you, I'm not," Thomas said, rising to his feet. "My species may be less technologically advanced than yours, but we are every bit as intelligent and self-aware." The princess shook her head, clearly struggling to process this revelation. "But if this is true, then stars above. What have we done?" Thomas took a step toward her, his expression softening. "You didn't know, but now that you do, you can help me, please." Aurora's luminous eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to do. If anyone finds out about this, it could cause an interstellar incident, and yet, keeping you here, knowing what I know now, it would be unconscionable." She began to pace, her gown swirling around her like mist. Thomas couldn't help but admire her grace, even in this moment of crisis. Pushing the thought aside, he focused on the matter at hand. "We don't have to tell anyone right away," he suggested. "Let me stay here as your guest, we can figure out a plan together." Aurora stopped pacing and regarded him thoughtfully. "That might work, but you'll have to continue pretending to be a pet in public, at least until we can find a way to explain this to my people." Thomas nodded in relief. It wasn't freedom, but it was a start. As the days passed, Thomas and Aurora grew closer. She was fascinated by his stories of Earth, and he found himself equally intrigued by Emeralda culture. They spent long hours in conversation, their initial awkwardness giving way to a warm camaraderie. Yet their growing bond did not go unnoticed. Other members of the royal court began to whisper about the princess's unusual attachment to her pet, some even dared to suggest that her feelings might be more than platonic. Lady Vex, a particularly ambitious Tsar, decided to investigate further. One afternoon, she cornered Thomas in the palace gardens while Aurora was occupied with official duties. Well, Vex," purred her voice dripping with false sweetness. "If it isn't the princess's favorite plaything. Tell me, little earth creature, what makes you so special?" Thomas remained silent, uncertain how to respond without giving himself away. Vex's eyes narrowed. "Not feeling talkative? Perhaps I can loosen that tongue of yours." She produced a small vial filled with shimmering liquid. This delightful concoction is known to have quite an effect on lower life forms. "Shall we see how you react?" Before Thomas could retreat, Vex poured the contents of the vial into his mouth. He spluttered and coughed, the liquid burning as it went down. Almost immediately, the world began to spin, colors became more vibrant, sounds more intense. Thomas felt a surge of euphoria coupled with a complete loss of inhibition. My, Vex chuckled, watching him sway unsteadily. "Aren't you full of surprises? I do believe you're even more attractive in this state." She ran a hand down his chest, her touch sending shivers through his overstimulated body. Thomas knew he should pull away, but his limbs wouldn't cooperate. "Lady Vex." Aurora's voice cracked like a whip as she stormed into the garden, her eyes blazing with fury. Vex stepped back, a look of feigned innocence on her face. "Your Highness, I was merely examining your pet, he seemed unwell, so I administered a harmless tonic, harmless, I assure you." Aurora snarled, "He can barely stand." "What did you give him?" As the two women argued, Thomas's muddled mind struggled to focus. He knew he should keep quiet and maintain his cover, but the drug had stripped away his self-control. Aurora reached for him. "My shining star, my emerald goddess." Both aliens froze, staring at him in shock. Did I just? Vex whispered. Aurora said urgently, Be quiet, Thomas. You don't know what you're saying. But Thomas was too far gone. He grinned dopely at the princess and declared, I know that you're the most beautiful creature in the galaxy, and I think I'm falling in love with you. The last thing Thomas saw before passing out was Aurora's expression, a mingled horror and longing, then darkness claimed him, leaving the two stunned women to deal with the aftermath of his inadvertent confession. When Thomas awoke, his head pounded and his mouth was dry. He found himself back in Aurora's chambers. The princess sat nearby, her face a mask of concern and confusion. Thomas, she said softly, we need to talk. He groaned, memories of his drug-induced behavior flooding back. Aurora, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. She raised a hand, silencing him. What's done is done. But now we have a much bigger problem. Lady Vex knows you can speak. It's only a matter of time before the whole court finds out. Thomas sat up, wincing at the movement. What are we going to do? Aurora's expression hardened with determination. We're going to tell them the truth, everything, and then, my dear Thomas, we're going to change the way Esmeralda sees the universe. As they prepared to face the court, Thomas felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't freedom, but at least he and Aurora would face the challenges together. His heart raced as he stood before the grand doors of the Emerald High Court. Aurora squeezed his hand reassuringly, her touch sending a familiar tingle through his body. Ready? She whispered. He nodded, swallowing hard as the doors swung open, revealing a vast chamber filled with the planet's elite. Emerald nobles in shimmering robes turned to stare as Thomas and Aurora entered. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Is that the princess's pet? Why isn't it on a leash? What in the galaxy is going on? At the far end of the chamber, the Emerald Council sat on elevated thrones. Their stern faces showed a mixture of confusion and disapproval. Lady Vex stood before them, a smug smile playing on her lips. Your Majesties, honored counselors, I have called this emergency session to expose a grave deception that threatens our very way of life. She pointed dramatically at Thomas. This creature, this supposed pet from Earth, is no mere animal. It can speak, and worse, it has bewitched our beloved princess. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Aurora stepped forward, her chin held high. Counselors, noble Emeraldan, what Lady Vex says is partially true. Thomas can indeed speak, but he has not bewitched me. He has opened my eyes to a truth we have been blind to for far too long. She gestured for Thomas to join her. Taking a deep breath, Thomas addressed the stunned crowd, flawless Emeraldan people of Esmeralda, I am Thomas Anderson of Earth. I came to your world not as a willing pet, but as a sentient being wrongfully enslaved. My planet may be less technologically advanced than yours, but we are your equals in intelligence and spirit. The chamber erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted accusations of trickery and sorcery. The counselors conferred urgently among themselves. Finally, the head counselor raised a hand for silence. This is unprecedented. If what you say is true, it could shake the foundations of our society. We will need proof of your claim. Over the next several hours, Thomas underwent a battery of tests. He solved complex mathematical equations, engaged in philosophical debates, and demonstrated his knowledge of Earth's history and culture. With each challenge, the Emeraldan skepticism gave way to grudging respect, and, in some cases, outright awe. As the final test concluded, the head counselor cleared his throat. It seems we owe you an apology, Thomas of Earth. Your intelligence is undeniable, but this raises troubling questions about our treatment of other species. Lady Vex, seeing her plans crumbling, made a desperate final play. Surely we cannot accept this alien as an equal. Think of the scandal, the princess consorting with a former pet. Aurora's eyes flashed dangerously. My personal life is not up for debate, Lady Vex. But since you bring it up, let me be clear, I love Thomas, not as a pet, not as a novelty, but as my equal and partner." She turned to address the entire court. "I have spent weeks learning about Earth culture from Thomas. Their world may be younger than ours, but in many ways they are more advanced. They value diversity, creativity, and individual freedom in ways we have forgotten. By opening our hearts and minds to them, we have everything to gain and nothing to lose." Thomas felt a surge of pride and affection for Aurora. He stepped forward, taking her hand. "Your Highness, noble Emeraldan, I stand before you not just as an individual but as a representative of my planet. I propose a cultural exchange program between Earth and Emeralda. Let us learn from each other and grow together." The council conferred for several tense minutes before the head counselor spoke. "Your proposal has merit, Thomas of Earth. We will need time to consider the full implications. For now, you are granted provisional status as an honored guest of Emeralda. Princess Aurora will be your official liaison." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. As they left the chamber, Thomas couldn't help but grin. "Well, that went better than expected. No one tried to dissect me at least." Aurora laughed, the sound like music to his ears. "Give it time. I'm sure someone in the science department is dying to get a DNA sample." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. News of Thomas's true nature spread across Emeralda like wildfire. Some reacted with fear and suspicion, but many were curious to learn more about Earth and its inhabitants. Thomas found himself giving lectures on human culture, fielding endless questions about everything from Earth's ecosystems to its mating rituals, the latter topic always making him blush, especially when Aurora was in attendance. Their relationship deepened, but not without challenges. Cultural misunderstandings led to both humorous and frustrating situations. One evening, as they strolled through the palace gardens, Thomas presented Aurora with a bouquet of emerald flowers. "Oh, Thomas," she said, her face falling. "You shouldn't have." Her heart sank. "You don't like them?" "No, it's not that, it's just that on Emeralda, giving someone cut flowers is, well, rather an explicit sexual invitation." Thomas's face burned. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. On Earth, it's just a romantic gesture." Aurora's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Well, perhaps we can combine the traditions." Their laughter echoed through the garden, drawing curious stares from passing nobles. Not everyone was pleased with the changing dynamics on Emeralda. A faction of conservatives, led by Lady Vex, began spreading rumors and stoking fears about the so-called Earth invasion. Tensions came to a head during a public forum on interspecies relations. Thomas was midway through a presentation when an angry protester burst onto the stage. "Go back to your primitive planet, you glorified ape," the protester shouted, brandishing a weapon. Time seemed to slow. Thomas saw an energy blast building, aimed straight at Aurora in the front row. Without thinking, he dove in front of her, taking the full force of the blast. Pain exploded through his body as he collapsed. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was Aurora's anguished cry. Thomas drifted in and out of awareness, catching snippets of worried conversation. "Unprecedented cellular damage, compatible with our healing technology, he may never fully recover." Finally, he clawed his way back to full consciousness. Aurora sat by his bedside, her face etched with worry. "Thomas," she breathed, "you're awake. How do you feel?" He managed a weak smile. "Like I got hit by a spaceship, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Tears shimmered in Aurora's eyes. "You saved my life, and in doing so, you may have saved much more," she explained. News of his heroic act had spread across Emeralda, and public opinion had shifted dramatically in favor of humans. In the proposed cultural exchange, the Council had agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Aurora said, her voice full of excitement, "They've granted you full citizenship rights, you're officially the first human emerald and dual citizen." Thomas's head spun with the implications. "That's, wow. But what about us? Is there still opposition to our relationship? Aurora's smile was radiant. There will always be some who disapprove, but the majority of my people now see you as a hero. They're calling our love a symbol of interstellar unity. As Thomas recovered, preparations for the first official Earth-Emeralda summit kicked into high gear. He worked tirelessly with Aurora and a team of advisors to ensure everything went smoothly. On the day of the summit, Thomas stood nervously beside Aurora as the Earth delegation ship landed. To his shock and delight, he recognized one of the figures emerging from the craft. "Mom," he exclaimed as his mother, Dr. Emily Anderson, approached and embraced him tightly. "Oh, Thomas, when you disappeared I never gave up hope, and now look at you, an interstellar diplomat." Thomas made the introductions, his heart swelling as he watched his mother and Aurora hit it off immediately. As the summit progressed, he marveled at how smoothly the two cultures were beginning to integrate. Emerald scientists were fascinated by Earth's biodiversity, human artists were inspired by Emeralda's architecture and music. Both sides found common ground in their shared love of exploration and discovery. There were, of course, moments of cultural clash. The Earth delegation was scandalized when an Emeralda official casually shape-shifted during a meeting, and more than one human nearly fainted upon learning that what they thought was a decorative plant was actually a sentient being. But through it all, Thomas and Aurora's relationship served as a beacon of hope. They navigated the complexities of their intergalactic love with humor and grace. Late one night, as they lay tangled together in Aurora's chambers, Thomas propped himself up on one elbow. "I've been thinking," he said, tracing patterns on her shimmering skin, "about our future." Aurora's eyes glowed softly in the dim light. "Oh, and what grand plans has that human brain of yours concocted?" Taking a deep breath, Thomas said, "I want to marry you, to make this official in the eyes of both our worlds." Aurora's face lit up with joy. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." Their wedding was a spectacle unlike anything either planet had seen before. It combined Earth and Emeralda traditions, symbolizing the union not just of two individuals, but of two worlds. As they exchanged vows, Thomas marveled at the journey that had brought him here, from an unwilling pet to a beloved partner, having helped forge a bond between civilizations. The years that followed were filled with both triumphs and challenges. Thomas and Aurora worked tirelessly to strengthen the alliance between Earth and Emeralda. They faced opposition from hardliners on both sides, but their love and determination never wavered. Their family grew, welcoming children who were living embodiments of unity between the two species. The sight of the little ones, with Aurora's shimmering skin and Thomas's expressive eyes, never failed to melt even the coldest hearts. As their firstborn took its first steps, Thomas reflected on the incredible path his life had taken. He had gone from a lonely programmer in New York to a key figure in intergalactic diplomacy, all because he had taken a chance on a dating app. "What are you thinking about?" Aurora asked, coming to stand beside him. Thomas pulled her close, marveling as always at how perfectly they fit together despite their biological differences. "Just how lucky I am," he said softly, "and how much I love you." Aurora's laugh was like starlight given sound. "Well, Mr. Intergalactic Heartthrob, why don't you show me just how much?" They came together in a passionate embrace, and Thomas silently thanked whatever cosmic force had brought them together. Their love had changed not just their lives, but the course of two civilizations, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a new star seemed to twinkle just a little bit brighter. Well, dear listeners, you've made it to the end of our intergalactic love story. We hope you've enjoyed this tale of alien princesses, interstellar misunderstandings, and the power of love to overcome even the widest of species gaps. Remember, the next time you're swiping on a dating app, that hot alien profile might just be real, but please, for the love of all that's holy in the universe, read the fine print before accepting any drinks on the first date. We can't all be as lucky as Thomas. Thank you for tuning in to Love Beyond the Stars, a tale of humans, Emeralda, and questionable pet ownership practices. May your own romantic adventures be just as exciting, but perhaps with fewer risks of accidental enslavement. Stay curious, Keep looking up at the stars, and always double-check whether that attractive alien is looking for a date or a new pet. Good night and good luck out there in the cosmos.